Hey everybody, how's it going? I hope you're having a lovely day, or at least a better day than Edison Motors after realizing why it was they were denied their grant application. Edison Motors is a company that makes electric truck conversion kits, and these are not the type of people making a kit where it's constantly spying on you, where you can't fix it, where you can't buy parts. Rather, they do the opposite. What Edison Motors tries to do is they try to use off-the-shelf components that you can purchase to repair your own products, and they also sell kits that you can use so that you can do the conversion yourself. They have interesting hats like this, poking fun because they were sick and tired of waiting for the electric Tesla semi-truck, so they decided to make their own. The idea behind this truck is very simple. A, you should be able to put it together yourself. B, the parts should be parts that you can get off the shelf from somewhere else so that you can fix it if you want to. And C, it's primarily for the commercial trucking market, where there's actually a lot of use for this. You may think an all-electric truck is crazy, that's going to be crazy expensive, this, that, and the other. This is actually very economically viable for a number of reasons when you look at the market that they're looking to serve. The idea, let's say that you have a truck and you want to deal with lumber and logging. You have a 4,000-pound truck. You need to take that thing up a hill. Once you take the truck up the hill, you are now going to fill that truck up with 20,000 pounds of lumber. Now you're going to go down the hill. You went up the hill with 4,000 pounds. You're going down with 24,000 pounds. This is where electric vehicles really come in handy because electric vehicles have something called regenerative braking. Regenerative braking means that the motor can then resist itself from moving, and as it resists itself from moving, it's going to then fill up the battery. It becomes a generator. So as you're going down a hill, you can actually fill up the battery because you have the motor resisting the 24,000-pound truck. Now, obviously, it's going to take less energy to go up the hill with 4,000 pounds than it is with 24,000 pounds. So again, you go up with 4,000, you go down with 24,000. You can go up the hill with the diesel generator, but then you go down the hill charging the battery, which means that you can now go up the hill again with the electric motor. This means that you need far less diesel fuel and conversely, far less diesel emissions. This is actually green. You're taking the benefits of diesel, you're taking the benefits of electric motors and lithium polymer batteries, and you're using it to have less emissions while being seamless to the trucker. The trucker is not going to go, oh my God, I have to charge this thing every 10 minutes, because when you run out of battery, it just uses the diesel generator. But when you're going down a hill, instead of wasting all of that energy from going down the hill, you're using going down the hill with that 20,000 pounds of lumber to recharge the battery. This is actually green, and it's from a company that really cares about repairability, sustainability, and you being able to say that you own what you bought and paid for. I did an interview with them for an hour, and in my opinion, these people are really doing a perfect job when it comes to making products that you could say that you own after you bought and paid for them. So what they did is they decided to try and apply for some grants within the government of British Canada, British Canada, British Columbia. It's the cold place where Justin Trudeau is king. Anyway, the point of the matter is they went to apply for a grant with, I believe, British Columbia's government to try and, get some money from the government to be able to work on this, which makes sense. The Canadian government has a lot of different programs for people that take part in green energy or are creating more energy efficient ways or lower emissions ways for people to get around. So it makes sense that a company doing this would apply for it, especially when they have products actually on the market that actually work. This is not vaporware. This is stuff that they're already offering you. So they applied for a grant from the Commercial Vehicle Innovation Challenge. They got no grant, and they had an email that came from somebody named Katrina. And they also got another email from somebody named Katrina, which was the same Katrina, but from a different domain name. Now, what made this weird is there was one domain name, which was from the government, and the other domain name for the other email was from MNP. What makes this strange is that MNP is a company that Edison Motors has said does something like this. Hey, do you want to get a government grant? We're great at writing government grants. All we ask for is 20% of the grant amount. Now, this is not something that would make my skin crawl if it wasn't for the fact that the same person that's contacting them from MNP is also the same person contacting them from the government. If I'm in charge of distributing government money, for me to have a private company that I also work at where I say, if you give me 20%, I can help you get a government contract or a government grant. Ew. I mean, that makes my skin crawl. That's even worse than what they do in New York City to me. Edison Motors said no because 20% was too expensive. And then when they found out the same person that is soliciting this whole 20% of the overall grant to kind of get you a grant thing is the person working in the government, their skin crawled similar to mine. And they said, you know what, screw that. Even if there's a chance of me getting free government money, this ain't the way that I want to do it. The government invited the gentleman at Edison Motors to the Victoria Government Building, and they asked the Edison Motors people about a grant. And they were confused as to why Edison Motors was not receiving a grant. This is essentially exactly exactly what this program is for. You're making vehicles that have lower emissions as a result of green energy, and you're not scamming people, and you've already created them. This is exactly what this grant program is for. Why are you not getting grants? You should go to the Energy Minister, Josie Osborne. Now, Josie Osborne has said that funding concerns related to MNP fees seem to relate to non-provincial programs. If there's evidence that it surrounds a government grant, then please would someone provide that to us in my office? She said in an interview. Edison Motors goes to her office. They have a photo proving they were there, and they had a conversation with her about this entire thing. Here is the company telling us that if we pay 20%, that they will help us get a government grant. This is the same people at the same company that also just so happen to be talking to us through the government grant process with an email address denoting that they are working from the government. Ew. Like, can you look into this? They leave the office with really no resolution. That same day, Edison Motors gets an email saying, yeah, we don't want you to talk at this event anymore. I know that you were scheduled to speak at this event, but we can't do that anymore. That is an event that is being run by a company called Plug-in BC. Plug-in BC is funded by Clean BC, whom Josie Osborne is the minister of. So let's get this straight. Edison Motors brings evidence of corruption to Minister Josie Osborne. Right after leaving their office, a company that is funded by Josie Osborne's office tells them, oh yeah, you know how we were going to have you speak at this event? Never mind, LOL JK, you're not allowed to speak anymore. But wait, it gets worse. After this, Clean BC sends out a form saying that they engaged MNP to prepare updated assessments of economic activity in zero-emissions vehicle sector. So let's get this straight. You go to the minister's office and you say that here's some evidence of corruption going on with the grant program. She ignores you. A company that your office has funded now silences Edison Motors from speaking at an event, and after all that happens, one fucking day later, the very company that they brought you evidence of corruption in is the same company that is now going to be helping choose who gets government grant money? Are you fucking kidding me? Again, this is worse than New York City government. I don't know what else to say to this. Now, they asked for an investigation because, again, this really does continue to get better. If you take a look on Canada's legislation website for British Columbia, Columbia, Canada, one of them, if you take a look over here, you'll see that there is a motion 25. Be it resolved that pursuant to Section 13, subsection 2 of the Auditor General Act, the Legislative Assembly requests that the Auditor General undertake an examination of the government of British Columbia's Clean BC Go Electric program, including but not limited to the Commercial Vehicle Innovation Challenge and the Advanced Research and Commercialization Program administered by MNP LLC, with a view to examining any potential conflicts of interest referring to program administrators charging success fees to successful applicants who use their advisory services. Now, this is about 6 pages. I'm not going to read the whole thing here, but I welcome you to read it. I will leave a URL down below. As you can see, the yays were 27 and the nays were 46, which means that they essentially voted damn near 2-1 in favor of not investigating any of what went on here in spite of all the evidence that Edison Motors had presented. The TLDR here is that Todd Stone had suggested a deep dive by the Auditor General into BC's Clean BC Go Electric program because of this seemingly corrupt business with MNP, with the whole idea of charging extra fees to people that they helped win grants. The government wasn't excited to push for an investigation. Callan said that the Auditor General could look into it if they really wanted to. Despite convincing arguments from the opposition, the motion got a thumbs down from the government side. And again, so right here, you have the NDP on one side opposing the investigation, which is the party in power, and then you have a coalition of opposition parties from the Liberals, the Greens, and the Conservatives who are supporting a call for transparency and accountability through an audit, asking the Auditor General, like, please, can you look at this? Can you look into this at all? Because this is kind of weird. The person who is administering the government grants with their @gov whatever email also has an @MNP email. The company that is calling people up and saying, hey man, like if you have us write your grant and we're just for a 20% fee, there's a much greater chance of you getting a grant. You don't need Oreo to tell you that that's some corrupt bullshit. But you know what? Let's have him tell you that that's some corrupt bullshit. Say hello to the people, Oreo. He's a good kitty. You should know that when you see edits in my videos, by the way, that it's not because I'm doing another take because I've messed something up or I'm editing something in. 99% of the edits that you see is because a cat has come into my room and just disturbed the crap out of me. That's what they're here for. I support the gentleman at Edison Motors. As you can tell from the interview that I had here, I wish that it could have went on for 3 or 5 hours, and I'm sure that if we had the time, it would have. What companies like Framework and Rossman Repair Group and this YouTube channel and my wiki are trying to do for the repair of consumer electronics, they're trying to do when it comes to electric trucks, electric vehicles, and commercial trucking. They really care about this stuff. And if any company should be getting this type of grant money, and the idea that there can be a gatekeeper that gets to pick and choose who it is giving government grant money based on them getting a percentage of the overall grant, it's just, in my opinion, it's disgusting. And it's the type of thing that should be looked into. And the fact that all these people have decided not to look into it, but above all, that he winds up getting his speaking engagement canceled by a company that is funded by the very office that didn't want to listen to them. That's shit. That's complete shit. I expect better from New York State government than I do from that. I'm going to play their video next, just because, and I got permission from them before I did this, because I thought it was a tragedy that on their YouTube channel it got something like 11,000 views. More people need to hear this, and there really does have to be another meeting that actually does lead to a serious investigation, in my opinion. Because this is shit. This is shit. Like, this is how places become New York, and I don't want to see British Canada become New York. That's it for today, and as always, I hope you learned something. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye now.
I may have made one of the dumbest financial decisions I've ever made at Edison Motors. Some of you may have seen that we were in the news today as part of a corruption scandal, and I would like to explain what happened. If you would like to read that news article for yourself, it was written by Rob Shaw, and this is the title of it. But let me explain what happened. So Edison Motors has never received a single clean tech grant from the BC government, even though we've applied for quite a few. The grant that started this controversy was the Commercial Vehicle Innovation Challenge, which was a grant for companies in British Columbia that are electrifying heavy-duty electric commercial trucks. We are the only company building heavy-duty electric commercial trucks in British Columbia. We didn't get the grant, but they did give us an option to have a meeting to discuss why we didn't get it. So of course we reached out. I'm blurring out people's names because I'm not here for the individual, but the Katrina thing is important. So Doug, a guy on our team, reached out to say that yes, we would like to talk about it, and then Katrina reached back. But this is where it got interesting. The Commercial Vehicle Innovation Challenge was care of MNP. And where the email had been at arcbc.ca, now the email had been at MNP. This was suspicious to us because we remembered that MNP was a company that reached out to us before to ask to write grants for us. And I remember telling them, no, sorry, we can't afford you. You're way too expensive. That's not even close to within our budget to be able to apply for these grants. So after this meeting, we found out that MNP was actually administering the government grants while asking if they could write our grants. So anyways, we had the meeting with MNP to discuss why we didn't get the grant awarded by them. And they basically said our timeline and budget were too ambitious. Our budget was too low and our timeline was too tight. They didn't believe that we could reasonably get the truck done in time, even though our budget was higher than what we built Topsy and the timeline was actually even longer than we built Topsy. We fully believed that we could make it because we had already done it before. Those were the two main issues. They said we had some of the best partners of everybody. We had a great project. They loved our project, but there was a few clerical errors in paperwork. Budget wasn't clear enough. It was multiple pages. Future market identifiers, we said, like heavy-duty trucks. It was a lot of paperwork and a few little things, and also they didn't get one application, which I submitted myself, so I don't know what happened there. Which basically, few paperwork issues, little bit of things. I mean, we're truck drivers. We're not experts at writing grants. I'll give them that. But where it's interesting is that after this meeting with MNP to discuss why we didn't get the grant, MNP had reached out to us and they set up another meeting to discuss why MNP should be writing our grants. As they stated, it was a 20% success fee of what we win in the grant for them to write our grants. And they strongly encouraged us that, hey, we will be successful if we go with MNP. Well, of course, MNP is deciding government grants. They straight up said that you're going to be a lot more successful if you get the company that's deciding government grants to then write your government grants. And you're going to pay 20% of whatever you win in the government grant back to them. At this point, if they were the ones deciding who got the government grants, we felt like we had no choice and we felt pressured to sign on to MNP for the incredibly high fees and the 20%. At this point, we just received our VIN number and our license plate, which means that we had built the first heavy-duty electric truck ever made in BC and the first semi-truck made in BC since Western Star closed down about 30 years ago. So we were excited. And we had done it all without any government grants at this point. The government had actually invited us down to the legislative building in Victoria to say how cool it was and, introduce us. While we were there, we met with several MLAs, and they were excited, and they said, hey, has the government been supporting you? Have you gotten any grants? And we said, no, we hadn't received any grants. They said, that's weird. What you're doing is very innovative. You should be receiving some grants. And we explained what we've been dealing with MNP. Hey, basically everything I just told you in that video before, we told those members of the Legislative Assembly. We gave them all the information we had. It wasn't just one political party. They all asked about it. We shared all the information and said, hey, this is interesting. If you want to look into it, here's what's going on. The company that's deciding the grants is also writing grants for companies, applying for the grants. That seems shady. I believe a fundamental principles of Edison Motors is that we are open, honest, and transparent, and we wanted to show everything that was going on with the government because it felt morally wrong to just go along with the way it was doing and not share that information. So all the people had a chance to investigate it with the information we showed, and yesterday morning, you can see the video, it's the one video on our page before this, the government said this is suspicious and we need to investigate it. The government wanted the government and itself to investigate what exactly was going on and if there was any issues. This is our tax money, it's where the carbon tax is going to. They said that, hey, if we're going to be collecting carbon tax, we need to investigate where those funds are and make sure they're not being misappropriated. The opposition party United, Conservatives, and Greens both came together to say that, yes, we've looked at it, this is warranted an investigation. The current existing government that administrated it all unanimously said, no, we are not going to do an investigation. So the current government that funds these grant programs just blocked an investigation to see if there was any corruption going on with the grant programs. Now, this is where it gets a little personally annoying for me. But the minister in charge of these grants, who administers the grant programs, said in this interview, if there's evidence around a government grant, then would someone please provide that to us in our office? We met with her office when we went down to the legislative building. Her office is actually this office right here. Here's a picture of us that they took standing from her office. This picture can literally only be taken from this vantage point from her office. We were in her office to talk about these things. We said that we wanted to tell people about it because it felt morally really wrong. But they said, no, they want to investigate it. Don't say anything yet. Let them look into it. Let them investigate it. Well then, just a few hours after we brought this up in her office, we got this email saying that, hey, we're not proceeding with you on stage at our event next week. Here's the date, February 27th. Literally the exact same day. This event was run by Plugin BC. Plugin BC is funded through the minister's office who we just met with. So these are the people that canceled our speaking engagement about electrification of heavy-duty fleets. So when we brought this up to our office, all that happened was a few hours later, we got removed from their speaking list at their own presentation. So not only did they not investigate it, the very next day they sent out this email. This is from Sam at MMP, literally the next day. On behalf of British Columbia Minister of Mines, Low Carbon Innovation, we're pleased to pronounce you with this yada yada yada. Here's the form. You can pause to read what they sent out. But basically that minister has now hired MMP to provide an updated assessment of economic activities for zero emissions vehicles and to inform future funding opportunities of Clean BC. So not only did that minister's office meet with us, but then say that they never met with us, they canceled our speaking engagement at their event, and then the very next day announced that the company that we had questions about is now in charge of doing the economic assessment for the programs and recommending the future programs. And then yesterday, the members of the NDP government who are running these programs blocked an official investigation into the program. So there we go. We were asked by the opposition to not share this publicly while they were looking into it, but now that it's in the news, I feel like we can finally share what's going on. It might make a sense of the last videos, but honestly, questioning if it was the right idea. We just brought the information that we had up to them. It probably would have been smarter to go along, pay the company, get the grants, and bring in that money for the business because we need to build that new shop. We've got truck sales. We've got to get into production. We got to do a lot more testing. We got to fund these things. It would have been smarter to just pay it, go along with the way the system is, but it seemed morally wrong to me. I hope I made the right choice. It was probably a poor financial decision, but I wanted to let you guys know exactly what was going on.